Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blind Buys, a podcast where we watch and discuss movies we've bought sight unseen. I'm Jesse, and with me, as always, is my collector in crime, Josh.
Hey, thanks for joining us for our 17th episode, where we'll be covering our first movie released by Deaf Crocodile, the epic Russian fantasy, Ilya Muromets. That'll be at the bottom of the hour. But at the top of this episode, we are going to be changing things up just a little bit due to some pretty major events that have shaken the film world here in the last few days.
Yeah, normally this is when we would talk about things we've been watching recently, but with the passing as of today, when we're recording yesterday of Dolly Parton and today of Tim Curry, certainly for me and I think for Josh, these are two people who just loomed very large in our sort of media diets as kids, as younger people, and now, whether that be for Dolly Parton, of course, for her music, but also just for her significant contributions to film. I mean, even though she did not have a very deep filmography for narrative films, she has several stone cold classics that deserve discussion. And I mean, we'll get into it, but Tim Curry is just, I mean, a monolithic figure.
Oh, yeah.
In sort of cult film, films for people of a certain age, and really anybody who likes movies. So yeah, we wanted to kind of just talk through a bit of their legacy, some movies that perhaps have been special to us, and I'm sure there's some ways for us to weave in the physical media angle with those. I know I've got a couple here, treasured pieces sitting right next to me that I'm excited to kind of talk about and highlight. So Josh, what are some, how did these it was kind of the 1-2 punch. How did it hit you these last couple days? What came up for you?
Man, it really hit hard. I think the Dolly one hit the hardest for me because 9 to 5 is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's a comfort film of mine. One of the first movies I bought on VHS when I decided to get back into VHS collecting. And her role in it is so special. It's just simply one of my favorite movie performances, I think, ever. And so, yeah, I was at work and my wife just texted me Dolly in all caps, and I was like, I really hope that's not referring to what I think it is. And so I rushed into the VHS Village Discord just to see what was going on, and yeah, it was tough in there. That's where I found out for real that Dolly was gone, and I I I had to take some time to like kind of compose myself a little bit because it was one of those the same thing happened when Catherine O'Hara passed earlier this year, where like literally my stomach felt like it just like dropped out. And it's so weird to me that has happened to me several times, because it's like, these are celebrities, like these are not people that I have ever met. I have no connection to whatsoever, and they wouldn't know me from another person walking on the street. But you just build these connections with them over time. You spend so much time with the characters that they build, and especially with someone like Catherine O'Hara or Tim Curry, who have such extensive filmographies, there are things that they carry with them, like, from performance to performance, that you can see is just part of their acting style, or, things like that really make it easier to easier to latch onto them as parts of your lives. And I think the other part about not really knowing them, personally, is that you get the feeling that they're just going to be around forever because they have always been around. And so that's just another reason why these hit so hard. These losses hit so hard, because you never think that the person that you enjoy most in your favorite movies is ever really going to be gone. You just don't think about that. And it's been tough, for sure. And then, less than 24 hours later, not even a full day later, we find out Tim Curry is gone. And that one is one that I had feared was coming, within the next couple of years, knowing what he's been through, medically in the past decade plus. But every time he's appeared, over the last few years, he seemed in great spirits, and another one of those people you thought was going to be around forever. So it's a real reality check for me. It's like preparing me, I think, for some even bigger ones, unfortunately, that might happen in the future. And I don't want to say their
Yeah.
names or speak anything like that into existence.
It's only going to get worse from here. Yeah, but yeah, with Dolly Parton, she was one of those people who I think I had this sense. I'm not. I enjoy her music. I'm not a deep fan, but I had listened to the podcast that Jad Abumrad had put out, a podcast series about. I think it might have been Dolly Parton's America or something, but he did like a 6 episode podcast about her life and just how she's affected, American life. And she just seemed like one of those people who, even if she met you even just briefly, she would have been just so interested to know more about you.
Yeah.
And she would have very much in the moment been like, there with you to talk about whatever it was. If you had, if you gave some appreciation of her work, it would be a heartfelt thanks. But yeah, and in every story you heard about her just seemed to confirm that was true, that she was just one of those amazing people who was just so genuine.
Genuine, but also, she wasn't limited to a nice, woman next door personality all the time. There was a naughty streak across a lot of her work. There was a very personable, kind of chummy vibe that she gives off that is very much, it's more than just average, kind celebrity, kind, humble, modest celebrity. She could spit back with jokes. She could do one-liners with late night hosts. She could be a little cheeky, and I think that adds to the genuineness of her appearances, her work. I mean, we can get into her filmmaking appearances too, but her charity work, her philanthropy.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
just the best.
Everything that she did with COVID research, with children's literacy. It's so interesting. Someone that I guess someone that we know signed my daughter up for her Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. And it must have been either one of my wife's parents or my parents or someone who knows us. But getting that first book in the mail last month from the Imagination Library with a letter from Dolly, was just so sweet and surprising. And I know getting the next one in the mail, which I assume is coming quite soon, is going to be a sad moment.
Yeah. It just felt like she cared because she showed that she cared in so many different ways. Yeah. My algorithm is definitely doing the work of surfacing all kinds of some things that I had seen on lots of other delightful clips from, Johnny Carson, David Letterman, the Muppets, you name it. Her willingness to both. I mean, she would display her comic chops, but also she could be lots of jokes at her own expense. Lots of sort of taking the piss out of other people. She could kind of give as good as she got, and I mean, that's just as much as you could ask for from a performer like that. And she just seemed like everyone had so much fun with her.
Yep. And I think one of the saddest things that I've seen the last few days is that Miss Piggy had to post back-to-back in memoriam posts for Dolly Parton and Tim Curry, which is just, how do you even describe that? It's Miss Piggy having to mourn the loss of two people she worked so closely with. And they're Muppets. I mean, they shouldn't have to mourn this.
And also, I think this tells us that the Muppets, if you're down with the Muppets, then you're probably good people. I think that's what we can glean from this. But yeah, I'm looking at Dolly's filmography, and I mean, from what I can tell, aside from obviously, she appeared on TV doing, Grand Ole Opry, you name it, whatever, throughout the 1970s. Her first narrative film role was 9 to 5, I think. And I mean, just right out of the gate, she's just stone cold hilarious next to three Titans really, and Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, and Dabney Coleman, three of just the funniest people, and she just hangs with them from the get-go. That was a movie that we grew up, my sister and I grew up watching on, I think it was on the Disney Channel a lot, and it was just just so funny, and such a great sort of message, I think, to get to, young people from a young age of like, yeah, the world is not set up uh, to put women in a place to be successful, and here's a movie telling you about it.
Yeah, and it is so forthcoming with its message, but that's not the whole movie. It is so funny and
Yes,
so rewatchable,
it doesn't feel like
and
vegetables in any way. Like at no
no,
point does it
yeah,
feel that way. Yeah.
and the way it's written, it's got this really like it's almost like a joke a minute style
Hmm.
before that really got codified, into what we know of it today. But like there are, you know, like dream sequences, like revenge fantasy bits. There's just all this stuff
Yeah.
happens, missing corpses, and it's like they're throwing stuff at
Workplace
the screen,
silliness stuff in the
yeah,
beginning,
and
and
it
like
is
then
all
yeah.
hitting, yeah. Hmm.
And then at the end when they actually have him tied up, all the sort of like trying to keep it concealed, it's just like I have not watched it in a
Yes.
very,
Oh
very
my
long
god.
time, but this is where I have to complain. We just got sort of a tranche of stuff announced from 20th Century Fox slash Disney, which is
Hmm.
great. We're getting Commando, we're getting a bunch of things, but this is one of those ones that is a 20th Century Fox release that is not. I mean, I think I checked the only release it's had here in high definition was a Twilight Time Blu-ray, I think, and those are
Yeah,
all
which
out of
is
print.
yeah. You cannot
Which is
find one of those on the internet for less
yeah,
than $200 right now.
and
Trust me, I've looked.
oh yeah, well, whenever I rent one from Scarecrow, it's one of the ones that you have to put the hold on your card. They all look incredible. Like I would love to own. Like if I had the Twilight Time Blu-ray, I'd probably be happy with it. But I mean, these need to get out again, and it's an unfortunate reason for it to perhaps come to pass. But this is one that would be like day one purchase for me for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And definitely one that I would double dip on because I already have it on VHS, and that's a prime movie to watch in that format because you're not necessarily feeling like you're missing
Hmm.
too much, with the pan and scan, cropping the frame, but just the vibes are immaculate, and I would choose to watch that on VHS over and over again,
Yeah.
truly. But a 4K is desperately needed as well because there are times where you do want to see that quality that was originally intended as
Yeah.
well.
Or just anything that's not like a snapper case DVD or whatever that is probably
Yes,
fit 20 years old at this point.
for real. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, after 9 to 5, she did the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, which has I believe a Kino Lorber Blu-ray currently, and I think that's about the extent of the releases that's had. But it was interesting reading a couple of interviews over the past few days that had kind of been surfaced to me on Instagram or whatever about Dolly's first couple of experiences in Hollywood being 9 to 5 and Best Little Whorehouse, because she said she had a fantastic time on 9 to 5 and like the atmosphere was great and she felt so welcome, and then had the complete opposite
Mm.
experience on Whorehouse. And so seeing that juxtaposition, like, and her kind of maybe getting not necessarily like turned off to the film industry, but that whiplash of having like a bad experience right after having a very ideal experience, maybe affecting how much she chose to work in film in the future, maybe. I'm not sure, but just kind of going off what I read, it seems to have been quite quite a difference working on Whorehouse.
And both directed by Colin Higgins, both directed by the same person, which I did not know until just this moment.
Yeah, me neither. That is
That's
strange to
fascinating.
have
Yeah.
such differing experiences. I
Yeah.
wonder if maybe the Burt Reynolds of it all had something to do with
Yeah,
it.
it could be. He was, by 1982, he was capital B, capital R Burt Reynolds, and who knows what that was like. Yeah. So this is one that I definitely saw clips at the very least snippets of when I was a kid on cable or somewhere, and I knew her from some of like Steel Magnolias and 9 to 5, but something about it being called the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, it felt like something I shouldn't be watching, and so I can't, I don't know that I've seen this in its entirety, but I definitely remember hearing her sing the song and all that, and the outfits, of
Yep.
course. But I need to revisit this and probably acquire that because I feel like I just need all the big Dolly movies at this point.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I've seen all the clips, but never the movie all the way through. So, a future episode maybe if
Yeah.
we.
Oh yeah. I would
Yeah,
count it
if
as a blind buy.
you
Yeah.
would think that counts. Yeah, I think
Oh
so
yeah.
too.
I'm counting. I'll count that.
Yeah. So you mentioned Steel Magnolias. How was that pretty central to your
Yes.
film watching experience?
Perhaps, I mean, it might sound like a weird one, but again, this was just one of those ones that was always on. It was just like, it must have been like an HBO sort of programmer. Just, you would find it on at any, you could find it on at any point when we were just sort of, my sister and I left to our own devices. And I think my mom probably loved this movie also because she loved Shirley MacLaine. She loved Sally Field, excuse me. And so I definitely saw this in bits and pieces many, many times, and probably all the way through at least a handful of times. And yeah, I mean, just kind of this was the version of Shirley MacLaine that I grew up kind of knowing. This and maybe some stuff from like Terms of Endearment, another big mom movie. Moms throughout the 1980s, I'm sure. That was one that she and her mom actually would always talk about. But this one, yeah, I definitely had seen loads. And again, yeah, just, I mean, utterly charming, again, acting alongside, titans like Sally Field and Shirley MacLaine. And even though hers is definitely more of a supporting role in that one, she hangs with the best of them and adds great color in her sort of storyline as the hairdresser who's hoping to kind of improve her station in some way. Totally just hits. So yeah, I have fond memories of that, but again, another one that I haven't seen in a long time, and I'm sure that I don't know what kind of a release this has, but
It got a 4K recently. Because I picked it up. I think it was just a studio release. I'm trying to look at my shelf over there to see. Yeah, it was just a studio 4K. Came out earlier this year, I think.
yeah. But if anyone out there thinks this doesn't perhaps fit their sensibilities, I mean, the performances alone are worth it. It's like, I mean, it might be classified as like, it's a tearjerker, I guess you would say. It's certainly like melodramatic, but I think you just got like, it's really grade A stuff from everybody who's in there. Also, Olympia Dukakis, Tom Skerritt, who I love as the the father figure. Have you seen Steel Magnolias?
That's another one where I've seen all the clips, but not the full movie all the way through. I have seen the play several times, so I'm very familiar with the story, and I plan to watch it soon, the movie all the way through, because I do want to see what Dolly brings to the role. I want to see what's going on with Julia Roberts' character, because from the clips I've seen, it seems maybe a little bit different than what I've seen her do before, and this whole ensemble looks fantastic.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, you can't beat it. And this was another one Sally Field posted on Instagram, like a behind the scenes shot of the the six of them together just having the best time, and I was just like, oh man, that one really got me.
Yeah, yep. And then there are a couple on here. Before she started doing more turns as, playing herself or doing cameos, which she did a lot of, towards the end of the 90s and then through the aughts. Most notably, the one that I remember the most is from Miss Congeniality 2, which is a great scene with Sandra Bullock chasing her through, I think it's like a mall or a convention center or something. Really great stuff. But there were a couple on here that I had never heard of before, one of which I had watched yesterday. But the first one is Rhinestone, which I have been trying to track down for the past few days, have not been able to find in any sort of, legal way. But yeah, Rhinestone, directed by Bob Clark of Black Christmas fame and A Christmas Story. But yeah, this is Dolly Parton and Sylvester Stallone, and Dolly Parton's character brags that she can turn anybody into a country singer, and ends up getting, I believe, a taxi driver played by Sylvester Stallone to become a country star. And I am very interested in this movie. I can't imagine that Dolly, or I should say, I can't imagine that Sylvester Stallone has any chemistry whatsoever with Dolly, but I think Dolly can have
Yeah.
chemistry with anyone, so maybe it
Yeah.
works the other way. But I have to see this. It seems like such a strange idea for a movie, and I feel like Dolly could probably carry it, even if it is a not good movie.
Yeah, this is what I have not seen this. I've heard of it, but Scarecrow already has their in memoriam section up for her, and all of the copies were out. They had like 2 or 3 copies on a couple formats when I was there. All of her big ones were checked out, of course, already. But
Yeah.
this is one that I will get from them for sure, because I'm very curious about this. So I also see Tim Thomerson is like fifth build, who from which is I don't think I've ever seen him in something that isn't like a crazy movie like Trancers or like Albert Pune films. So I have to see what he's up to in this movie. And Bob Clark, just kind of like a very steady hand, I feel like would know how to get Sylvester Stallone to do something that's worth watching on camera with these people.
The key art for this movie on Letterboxd is Sylvester Stallone and Dolly Parton arm wrestling. And,
Yes.
it looks like Dolly's winning. So,
yeah, he doesn't know. He looks very unsure about what's going on. He's doing like Stallone face to camera. Yeah, love it. Love it.
Oh, man.
I also looked at, there's also Wild Texas Wind, which is a movie with her and Gary Busey. This, Scarecrow did not have this. So I don't know if this is like floating around and only
Is this like a Lifetime movie or something?
I have no idea what the details are, but I'm curious. Soon after a country singer moves in with her band's new manager, he's found slain and she's a suspect. So it sounds like an erotic thriller or something. I don't know, but yeah, very curious.
Very strange. And then the other one I was going to mention is this one called Straight Talk.
Oh yeah.
Which, have you seen Straight Talk?
I haven't. It's on Hoopla. I almost rented it. They had it on VHS, I think, but it's on Hoopla, so I can wait on that. But it's
this is the one that I watched last night as my in memoriam watch for Dolly, because I wanted to watch something I hadn't seen, but I frankly wasn't in the mood. I think to watch Steel Magnolias.
Sure. Yeah.
That's for obvious reasons. So I picked Straight Talk, and this is not a great movie, but Dolly makes it a great movie, and that's just something that she can do. She can take a not great premise, she can take cheesy dialogue, and really like give it a heart and a soul in a way that a lot of other performers maybe that you might think would fit this role a little better could do. So this is about a small town dance instructor from Arkansas who uproots her life, moves to Chicago, and accidentally finds her way into hosting a radio call-in show. She gets mistaken as a radio psychiatrist and ends up, being her warm and helpful self on the radio. And the only problem is her producer, played by Griffin Dunn, which is really surprising, wants her to be called doctor. And she is very concerned about lying to the public because she's clearly not a doctor. And so that's kind of the central conflict of the movie. And then a newspaper reporter, played by James Woods, is investigating her, maybe falling in love with her, and kind of see where that goes. Very formulaic, very predictable, but just so much fun. And I feel like it's going to be pretty rewatchable too. It's got a ton of those great classic, like Dolly Parton one-liners about life, and I really enjoyed it. So, and watched through Hoopla, so the power of the public library.
Yes,
I think Dolly would be
yes.
proud of that. And I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend people check it out if they can. I don't think it's a great movie by any means, but I gave it 4 stars because why not?
Sure,
I can do what I want.
I'll be checking it out. And I mean, aside from sort of cameos and smaller parts and things where she appeared as herself, that's kind of the whole story almost of her, her career in narrative film, which is, she had her hands in so many different pies, so it makes sense. I do selfishly wish we got more of her in movies, but I think the legacy that she left is pretty great. So yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, for a whole generation of kids as well, on Hannah Montana, which is actually where I saw her for the
Oh,
first time,
yes,
which is
yes, for sure.
maybe to my shame or not. You know what? I am the
Hey,
age that I am, so that
yeah,
is
all good
yeah.
with her goddaughter,
Yep.
Miley Cyrus. And then we have, I mean, just the incomparable Tim Curry. I mean, a guy who just was a big part of many things that frightened and fascinated me when I was a kid. I mean, if I looking through the list here, a lot of things that were just really indelible comedic and arch performances. Sometimes as a supporting cast, but other times front and center. And he brought something to the screen every time that I think nobody else could do but him.
Yeah, he was capable of these crazy outsized performances that I genuinely don't think that anyone else could do. Like I mean, we're obviously going to hit on the obvious ones, like, his big breakout Rocky Horror Picture Show. I believe he originated the role of Dr. Frankenfurter on Broadway. And so he played a big part in like crafting that character, making it what it was. And knowing that and seeing how it turns out in the movie, there's really like that is a direct line to his like his ability to really embody character and take risks, and he did that throughout his entire career.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one that I've only seen once in my my early Netflix DVD days of
Oh
just
wow.
plowing through. Like, I would get 3 or 4 discs in the mail at a time
Yeah.
and blast through them when I was really kind of felt like playing catch up mode. But yeah, I mean, just amazing stuff. I would love to go do the midnight participatory screening of it
Oh
thing
yeah.
sometime. I've never done that, but I think that just feels like a real rite of passage for anyone who loves movies. It
Oh
feels like
yeah.
something you've got to do at least once.
Yeah.
And if you did one, you'd probably end up doing half a dozen because it just seems like a great time. And once you know when to do or say the certain things, it kind of enhances the whole experience.
Yeah, yeah, I got to go 2 years ago
Oh, nice.
to an interactive screening. It had a shadow cast of people acting out the scenes in front of the movie, and
Oh man.
we got props, and we're given scripts of when to throw what at the screen, and it's a great time. Performers running through the seats, through the
Mm-hmm.
aisles. Just like not all movies need that, but this one absolutely does. Like it's an essential part of the experience, especially because I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion, but like the Rocky Horror Picture Show really loses steam as it continues into the third act, and it
I
kind
do
of
remember
turns
more of the
into
stuff at the beginning than I do at the end. Yes, I
yeah,
would agree
and it
with
really
that.
turns into like one really drawn out song after another, and so watching it at home is just not the same. And so that's my opinion, but it's definitely worth seeing in theaters, and it is just a massive, massive part of the cult movie culture. Midnight movies, and it has so many fans, and it's so important to so many people. And so that's obviously the big one. But I mean, his filmography is stacked.
Yeah, yeah. The earliest one for me, I think we had this on a taped off cable VHS, and it was Ridley Scott's Legend, where he plays essentially, Satan, the Lord of Darkness, in this I mean, just one of the most sumptuous fantasy worlds I think that's ever been committed to film, honestly. I mean, I have I was lucky enough to get into so when I first got back into collecting, I was like, I'm just gonna stick to Criterion. But then when Arrow released this Legend set hardbox, it's gorgeous. And that really kind of hipped me to Arrow and what some of these other labels are up to. And it's a Blu-ray, and I believe it will only ever be a Blu-ray for some reasons, for some things having to do with the elements that exist now.
Mm.
There's not going to ever be a 4K, so this is kind of it. There might be Blu-rays in the future, but I was grateful to get in on the limited edition of this because it's really a beautiful set. But it also has just some amazing, I mean, the featurettes on how they built these sets. I mean, they constructed a massive forest in a soundstage, in a huge soundstage. And people kind of rag on it because I think because they're thinking too much about of it as a Tom Cruise movie, and it's a very early Tom Cruise movie, and he's, you know, he's playing an archetype. He's playing like in, you know, the hero's journey archetype. It's not a deep character. But I mean, as a fantasy adventure movie, I don't know what else you could want from it because it has incredible makeup, it has amazing music, and I mean, really, the central performance for me is Tim Curry as the Lord of Darkness in this incredible makeup getup. He had fake hooves that made him taller, I think. He had what I have to imagine was like probably makeup as his abs because he looks just totally ripped. I mean, I don't know what he was working with in the mid 80s, but I mean, the Lord of Darkness looks amazing, and there's these huge horns. I mean, if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But he has to act through what I have to imagine was dozens of pounds of makeup on his face, on his head with these horns, and I think anybody else under that makeup would not have been able to put in the performance that he did. I think you just watched this, didn't you, Josh?
I watched this today, like maybe 4 or 5 hours ago, and it's one of the blind buys in my collection that I had that had Tim Curry in it. So I was like, let's just break it out and see what this is about, because I had heard you talk about it, and I'm surprised he was able to move really at all.
Yeah.
In that outfit, all of the costume and makeup and everything, but
even just his hands look like they have like big Hulk mitts on them with the fingers and the nails and stuff.
Yeah, but he is so capable in this role. His voice is so. I mean, it's one of the most distinctive things about him is his voice, but it is like it's very powerful performance, not just in the voice, but you know, embodying that character in all the ways. But I really like this movie for, you know, what it is, a, you know, display of a fantasy world, you know, kind of leaning into those archetypes. The Tangerine Dream score is just incredible.
There's a Lost Goldsmith score too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I opted to watch the theatrical version because I wanted to hear the Tangerine Dream score, but the director's cut that's on the Arrow release does have the Lost score, I believe, right?
I think it does, yeah. I've never watched that, but the Tangerine Dream score is just so burnt into my brain. I don't think I can watch the other one, even if it is a Goldsmith. He's amazing, but
the sequence where Lily gets kind of like transformed or corrupted by the Lord of Darkness,
and the dance with the mannequin.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yep.
I mean, the effects in that scene alone are really cool, God. But the music is just a chef's kiss.
Well, and it's good. Like, and again, this is like kind of in I have a list of like the sort of like my kids' Crucible sort of like scary movies that we used to make for kids that we can't make anymore. It's like one of the most kind of like weirdly and darkly sexual movies that I had seen at a young age, just for like his performance. Amazing stuff. You gotta check it out. And if you can get in on this Arrow Blu-ray, even just as a standard, it's great. Who knows what they'll, you know, in 10 years when they need to find a way to sell these movies again, maybe it'll be back in some way. But yeah, a great set. What do you got next for Mr. Curry?
I mean, a big one for me is Annie, and I think that's where a lot of you know, musical theater fans, you either love or you hate Annie because it's overdone or the songs are annoying, or in my case, you love it because it's Carol Burnett and Tim Curry getting to just go at it in scenes together, and Bernadette Peters as well. And this is one of those performances that it's much more on a human level, but still outsized enough because this is a musical. He's playing basically a bad guy, but he gets Easy Street, which is my absolute favorite song, one of my favorite show tunes ever, and he is just so electric in this song and throughout the rest of the film, obviously. But I adore his performance in Annie. It is so special. And like I said, in a movie with Bernadette Peters and freaking Carol Burnett also batting 1,000 in her role as Miss Hannigan, he carves out his own niche with this performance, and he stands out from the rest. Really great stuff. What else you got for him?
Another one I wanted to highlight, which again I just recently picked this up Finally, I was waiting for it to drop. It's one of Vinegar Syndrome's VSU releases. Is Congo,
Yes. Do you have the
a
box?
sentimental yes, a sentimental favorite from when I was a kid. I was like kind of prime age for. I was very high on Michael Crichton stuff when this came out. I think I'd read the book before the movie came out, even though all of his books are very strange. I was probably too young to really read it. But whether this is a good movie, I'll leave that up to viewers to decide. But in this, he's definitely in a supporting role. But he plays this. If you don't know the movie, it's this sort of strange plot where these people are going to this team of scientists are going in to retrieve. They think they're going to go study some of like an ancient civilization, the remnants thereof, and to kind of like follow the trail of these other people who had gone there and mysteriously disappeared. But spoiler, there are wild, violent gorillas that live in the ruins. But anyway, Curry's character is this sort of flim-flam man, a sort of disgraced Romanian archaeologist, or I can't remember if he poses as an archaeologist, Herkimer Homolka, who kind of joins along. He kind of purporting to be sort of like a guide who could get them to this lost city, but he has ulterior motives. But this is one where he has this outrageous Eastern European accent, and he just is chewing every bit of scenery that he gets. He has this incredible exchange with Delroy Lindo, who plays a sort of like African warlord type, or militia leader, which also probably my introduction to Delroy Lindo. They have a scene together that is just, I've seen parts of it run through my head like on a monthly basis, like no joke. Yeah, and he's just having loads of fun, and I think the whole movie it's a fun movie, but for me his performance kind of kicks it up into the next level in terms of being something memorable, and what made it be something that I wanted to have on the shelf once it was available 50% off, I will say, because these VSU releases are not cheap. And so I watched it until like how many copies were left. And this is just, one of their totally decked out releases with a book, and it's got the magnetic closure and all that stuff. And even, viewers cannot, or listeners cannot see this, but they've got this picture of him making this outrageous, look of avarice on his face, holding a diamond up that's like straight out of a pulp comic. But that's literally what he does when he finds the diamond. He holds it up. It's like, it's mine. He's just a lot of fun. Really great stuff. Really fun stuff.
Yeah, so, I was lucky to find the standard edition 4K used, so I picked it up, and that's how I watched Congo for the first time. And I quite enjoyed it. It's a trip for sure.
Yeah.
And we can talk Tim Curry all day. Muppet Treasure Island is a really important part of my childhood. It was like, I think, one of the last of the Muppet movies that I saw before I had seen them all, and really got me into the whole idea of what if the Muppets took on, another piece of classical literature, and kind of descending from there. But basically, Tim Curry, honorary Muppet himself, he gets the Michael Caine role in this movie of human stand-in, and it is just such a great performance. And he, like you said, he's able to hang with the Muppets, and I think that says something about him, both as a performer and as a human. And it's just a really great time. Got that on VHS recently as well. So I think that's actually the only copy of the movie I have currently. So I'm sure I'll watch it soon, rewatch it soon.
I think that was probably the last Muppet movie that I've seen.
Have you seen Muppets from Space?
I have not seen Muppets in Space. I was 12 years old when this one came out. Mm-hmm. And I think by the time Muppets in Space came out, something about it just looked like, I don't know if this is for me. And I had enough of the previous 5 or so movies that came out that were just so good. I was like, I could just watch these other ones. So I fell off after that. But yes, Muppet Treasure Island, still a classic for sure.
Didn't mention any of his voice work yet, but he done extensive voice work, especially in the 2000s on. Most notable one, I think, in my house is Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, which is, it's a classic. Also, like, it's 66 minutes long. So it's one of those things where you can just throw on if you have an hour, and is just a really fun time. He's very central in that movie, and there's a really fun plot twist that kind of moves things outside of the traditional Scooby-Doo villain reveal, and that one's really fun. We watched that one tonight. My wife wanted to watch that one tonight because that was the first thing she remembered hearing or seeing Tim Curry in. So
Nice.
we put that one in briefly.
We were a Fern Gully house, and so that's where I learned that he had musical chops as a kid. He just,
Yeah.
a great villain song. Another one that he just, chews up, even through the animation. So yes, yep, plenty for me to catch up with on his voice work for sure, though.
Yeah.
So.
Did you have any relation to his performance as Pennywise?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, we could go on forever, but yes, no, that was one that I think I only ever caught in snippets, because it's that's like a two-parter. It's long,
It's
but
like
no,
4
he
hours.
was.
Yeah, geez.
That was one that I would watch through, if not through my fingers, then very much like watching as much as I could, care to stomach. Because I mean, there's some upsetting imagery in that for sure. But no, he, burned into my brain for sure. Yeah. Lots of, even Clue is sort of like, it's not horror, but it's kind of, I kind of think of it as horror adjacent, just given like the dark, stormy night sort of feel to it. So yeah, another thing in the list of like these just genre, incredible performances that make genre movies kind of stick in your brain. I think he's really one of the people who made that.
Well, before we wrap up talking about Tim Curry, are there any blind spots you want to try to fill now that he's passed on? And
I mean, I think I've seen a lot of the big ones. I mean, a lot of these are, I would be going down a rabbit hole to see any of these other ones, but I mean, there's a lot of sort of weird comedies from the 80s and 90s are kind of my go-to thing if I'm not sure what I want to watch, and I definitely see some things that look like they fit the bill. Oddly enough, another Sylvester Stallone film, Oscar, that he has a supporting role in from 1991, directed by John Landis.
Oh wow,
with Marissa Tomei. Oh yeah, I think I definitely saw
this.
some clips of this earlier, so that might be the next one I try to hit for him. What about you? You got one?
I would like to see The Worst Witch if I can.
Oh yeah.
Might have to find a way to do that, but this just looks so intriguing to me.
Perfect light spooky season fare with Fairuza Balk, a very young Fairuza Balk, another just total queen of October. That's one that we watched all the time. So it might have been I think it was shot on video because it has that feel to it. So who knows what kind of a release it could get, but I would definitely get that. But I think it's probably readily available on YouTube in its entirety.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, and that's a fine way to watch it. Yep.
Yeah, well, it's been a tough couple of days. It's like the universe is kicking us when we're already down.
But at least we always know that we have to look forward to more things that are coming soon, right?
Yes. Wow, what a great segue. Yeah, let's play the music. Time to do Coming Soon to Own.
Coming soon to own on video and DVD.
As always, this is the segment where we each pick a couple of things to discuss that are being released soon on physical media. Jesse, you had already mentioned a little bit about some 20th Century Studios releases, Disney releases coming out soon. The main ones that I wanted to discuss were 2 Robin Williams features finally getting the 4K treatment. We've got Miss Doubtfire and Dead Poet Society coming to us on 4K from Disney and 20th Century Studios. And these are just huge canonical titles finally getting the 4K treatment. And so I'm really happy to see these both coming out September 29th. Obviously, these are, studio releases. So the amount of, features we might get, we'll have to look out for and see. Obviously, these aren't boutique releases, but I mean, having new 4K scans of these movies and plus getting like those digital copies that are always so nice to have with the studio releases, I think is going to be great. I really love the cover of the Dead Poet Society release that they've put out. The slipcover of this, with the red backgrounds and the students standing on pages from the poetry, and it is just really, really nice to look at.
Yeah, that's a nice touch, because sometimes that's one of the things that, can be lacking. They just kind of slap on either, the original posters, which, oftentimes are can be very, very, very good, or it's like some kind of a horrible, weird Photoshop job.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one looks good. Yeah. Yeah, both of these, Mrs. Doubtfire, I mean, I watched countless times on television, and one that I think, I will say, just for me, I think I'm happy to live in the memory of
Oh yeah.
what I've seen. Much of it just I have kind of committed, and certain elements of it kind of haven't aged well for me. But there's definitely, I mean, his performance is incredible. Sally Field again, also great.
Yep.
Dead Poet, I could see picking that up for sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure how rewatchable I feel Dead Poet Society is.
Yeah,
but
another kind of sappy movie, but sometimes
Yeah.
that's just what you're in the mood for.
Yeah, and I think it's worth adding to the collection because it's a classic.
Yeah.
So I'll probably be getting both of these. And then something that has been rumored here in recent days, and this news came about around the same time as the two previous releases I just mentioned, but there is a rumored National Treasure 4K steelbook coming soon, perhaps. Now, this is a French steelbook, and the reason this rumor came about is that a pre-order was listed on a French website, and it seems to have been taken down since then. But I'm here for these rumors, because if a National Treasure 4K is coming to France, surely that means a U.S. release is coming soon, and a National Treasure 4K would be an instant pre-order for me. I would not even think twice about it. So if that's coming, I'm gonna be keeping an eye out on that. But yeah, no release dates on that or anything, just rumors. But definitely eyeing that for sure.
Yeah, big days for the Nick Cage completists, along with the Rock and Con Air being announced in 4K.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. And finally, this is a TV series, but Warner Brothers and HBO announced that Hacks is getting a complete series box set on Blu-ray. And this is coming, I think, in November or December. I'll have to make sure to look. But I love Hacks so much. The past 5 years, this has come on. Every season, I feel like, has gotten better than the previous one. And Hannah Einbinder and Gene Smart are two of just the greatest comedic actors to hit TV together, I think, in like the last decade or more. And the story that they set out to tell on this show went to some very interesting places in the final couple of seasons. And I think the rewatch factor on this is going to be insane. So I don't often buy modern TV series when they get put out on Blu-ray or even 4K, but I think this one I'm going to pick up. This feels like something I want to have. This feels like a complete statement to me as a TV series. Like, they ended it on their own terms this past year, and I think the rewatch value is going to be great, going back to the beginning, knowing how it pans out. So I'm definitely going to be picking this up, and I would definitely encourage listeners out there who have not seen Hacks to check it out.
Yeah, I am among those who have not seen it. My wife really loved it, but I did love, and hopefully we can talk about it next time when we get back to our regularly scheduled segment about what we've been watching. But yeah, Hannah Einbender and Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, fantastic. So yeah, I'm definitely curious. I should probably dip in. I should dip in and watch a little bit of the show and see what it's about.
Yeah, definitely do that. And I have got to get out to the theater and see Camp Miasma. It's like
gone.
It is stressing me out so much that the theatrical rollout of this has been so short. Like, it's already leaving some theaters near me. I feel
It's
like
been out like a week wide. Yep.
Yeah, I feel like my chance to see this is like slipping through my fingers. I've got to get out there. What do you got for coming soon to own?
Yeah, I'll run through a few quick. One of the most affecting new watches for me of the last several years was Greg Araki's Mysterious Skin, and that is getting a 4K from Umbrella, and one of their really beautiful thicker sets that comes with like a poster and things like that. Just a really, I mean, I it's a tale that is hard to tell, involving young children and abuse and other things, but it's told in it's told in a beautiful way that is really kind of hard to explain if you haven't seen it. So I would recommend anybody who thinks they can handle a story like that to go out and check it out. This was Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Brady Corbet are the two young men depicted in the film, and just incredible stuff from both of them. Really, I mean, if Joseph Gordon-Levitt never acted another day in his life, that one I think already that performance kind of set him, in the firmament of great actors of his generation, like no joke. So that I'm very interested in, and it's an Umbrella release, so maybe there'll be a US 4K coming soon. But these Umbrella sets are very nice, so that's definitely on my radar. Have you seen Mysterious Skin, Josh?
I haven't. No, I need to check it out. I went through the Teenage trilogy that Greg Araki did last year, and of course, Smiley Face. I love.
Yes, and supposedly that's the movie. I think I've heard it said that he said he had to make that after he needed something to just totally cleanse himself after making Mysterious Skin. It was such an intense experience for him as a director. I don't know if that's true, but I buy it. Because Smiley Face is, I mean, just a pure confection. So fun.
Yeah, it's so light and breezy. So much fun.
Another one, Shout Factory just announced a 5-film collection of women in prison films. So I think I may have seen, so there's The Big Dollhouse, The Women in Cages, Chained Heat, Jungle Warriors, and Red Heat, spanning from like the early 70s to the mid 1980s. I've seen at least one of these. I think it was The Big Dollhouse. And some of these have Pam Grier, so these might be an acquired taste for some, but if you like 70s grindhouse exploitation stuff, these are it's fun to get some of these box sets and kind of see all the different flavors, different iterations on the particular theme. So that's an intriguing one. And again, just for these movies to be coming out in 4K, it's like, what a time to be alive.
Yeah, this is. I was about to say this. This feels quite in line with their 2 volumes of the blaxploitation classics set, in the fact that these all have such pristine presentations, and it's not the movies you would expect to get transfers like that, but they look incredible.
Well, one of them, I think one of these ones is Jonathan Demme made one of these movies, if not one of, I can't remember which one he did, but yeah, I mean, this was like the sort of the Roger Corman film boot camp that so many great filmmakers went through, and they were making these movies. This is where they kind of cut their teeth. So for that reason alone, I think they're kind of interesting for movie fans. And the last one I will mention, aside to just say Criterion slate, it all sounds awesome. I want all of it. If you know, you've probably already seen these, but those are movies that most people probably know about. But the last movie I would highlight is Survive Style 5 Plus, a Japanese film, and it's a UK. It's coming out from Third Window Films, which I actually don't own any of their stuff. But yeah, this is a sort of a movie that I saw because it was fans of the 70mm podcast will know what a cage pick was. It was a patron submitted selection for the 70mm guys to cover. And to me, I kind of describe it as like Japanese counter programming to Love Actually, and much better than that, in that it's this sort of like taking taking place around Christmas time, oddly, I believe. But it's like these kind of like three stories that are kind of presented together in an interlocking way that are very kind of like oddly whimsical. One of them's like a crime story. A very interesting film that's kind of indescribable. But it was one of the funnest, one of the best movies I've seen from that podcast, and I wouldn't have known about it if my friend AJ had not suggested that they watch that, and so I was glad that he did, and I'm glad it's getting a 4K release. So I'd recommend it to fans of Japanese films and sort of quirky offbeat stories.
Nice. Yeah, I think I might pick this one up and wait to watch it until I get the physical copy. Because I remember I remember when that got picked as the Cage pick, and I feel like not many people knew what it was. So I'll be interested to check it out.
Well, and I think if that's it, all there is left to do is for us to talk about this week's feature presentation.
And now, our feature presentation.
The setting, medieval Russia. Ilya Muromets, crippled since birth, can only watch helplessly as the evil Tugars pillage his village and abduct his love, Vasilisa. Soon, a group of travelers arrive to the village, offering Ilya a magical potion that cures him and bestowing upon him a hero's sword. He swears to defend his homeland and sets off for the city of Kiev to join the fight against the Tugars. Along the way, he encounters Nightingale the Robber, joins a band of knights, proves himself to Prince Vladimir, and reunites with Vasilisa, all the while facing threats from a traitor in the prince's court. Will the Tugars succeed in taking over Russia, or will they perish under the might of Ilya Muromets?
Well, Josh, I'm going to assume that you don't have history, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, with the director here, Aleksandr Ptushko.
No, yeah.
Kind of an obscure guy. So have you, are there any other, this was, put out by, sort of like the Soviet state film studio, Mosfilm. Like, have you seen many other Mosfilm productions?
So I've watched Battleship Potemkin, which, is from the 20s. I've also watched VIY, which was put out in the Severin All the Haunts box set, but which I had initially seen because Eureka put it out of the UK, and that's where I picked it up originally. That was a great kind of gothic horror film I really enjoyed. But other than that, no, I haven't seen anything else released by Mosfilm.
Yeah, for me, most of it is Andrei Tarkovsky's output before he sort of went into sort of, I think, self-imposed exile. His films were all put out from Mosfilm, so I've seen all those: Solaris, Mirror, Stalker, etc. And then the sort of oddly twinned duo of Larisa Shepitko and Elim Klimov, who directed The Ascent and Come and See, a husband and wife, two just incredible war films, and then also the films of Mikhail Kalatatsov. So a lot of basically Criterion stuff, along with V. And that's it. So Soviet film, I think, is a really fascinating bit of a blind spot for me outside of these kind of the heavy hitters. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to see something that is not, this is a highly artistic film, but I wouldn't call it an art film. Like most of what I've seen, I would say is like art film in one form or another. But this is, very much like it's a piece of propaganda, of kind of nationalistic propaganda. And
it's based on a Russian epic poem. So this is a traditional like folklore character that passed down through the oral tradition in Russia. So there is definitely that aspect to it of this being such a story kind of deeply embedded in this country's, oral history. But yeah.
Yeah. What led you to pick this up? Was it just curiosity in what Deaf Crocodile was up to, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I had picked this up because I had seen that this was a very popular pick that people would get from Deaf Crocodile and kind of indicative of the kind of movies that they would choose to put out. And so I thought it was a good place to start. It was, I think, one of the first ones that I had ordered for my collection from them. I know they also put out a box set of Aleksandr Ptushko's work, which I think was sold out by the time I had gotten into their stuff. But it looks like you have it, yeah?
Yeah. This was, I believe I think it was a Kickstarter. Actually, I think I got it off a Kickstarter, and then it was available on their site because I already had this one for sure. I think from when they were still, it was the Vinegar Syndrome partner label release edition, because that, they're one of the great success stories, I think, of the, kind of like spinning off of the orbit of Vinegar Syndrome's partner network. But then yeah, they put out the, so I didn't, that was the only one that was a double dip for me. But then they had also included Sampo, The Tale of Tsar Sultan, and then the newest one was Ruslan and Ludmila. And yeah, all these are sort of in that same vein of like, I think one of them is a Finnish folk tale or fairy tale. But all of these, like, and they put them out also in these really cool slip covers with that spell Ptushko with
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's really
How
it's
cool
very
is that?
striking. Yeah, it's cool. It's different because it's not like a slip that tells you what the movie's about, but I think it's very striking, and you get big versions of those and of the artwork in the letters. So, but yeah, I hadn't watched any of these yet, so it was really great to dip in finally. And yeah, I agree. It's very much kind of like was an early taste of showing Deaf Crocodile's interest in these like films that if you didn't kind of grow up watching state television in Russia or elsewhere in the 1970s and 80s, like how would you have seen these things, right? Certainly not. I mean, they look beautiful.
Yeah.
Like the work that Deaf Crocodile did in collaboration with Mosfilm for the, I mean, just like there's matte paintings and costumes. I mean, it just looks really, even though these aren't, they're Blu-rays, but they look beautiful.
Yeah. A couple of things worth noting about this movie specifically is that it was Russia's first widescreen film, so breaking out of the the full frame aspect ratio, and so that's very significant because Ptushko was able to play around with new staging techniques in this film, really taking advantage of the length of the width of the screen. And also, this movie, and I believe several others of his, maybe some of the ones in the box set, were kind of recut and redubbed to be released in the U.S., kind of de-Sovietized for release in the U.S., and found some success kind of in the cult movie circles. But I mentioned this at the end of last episode, but most notably, this film was retitled, I believe, The Sword and the Dragon, and was re-edited, redubbed by Roger Corman's company, and ended up on Mystery Science Theater 3000, which makes sense. I could see why they would want to kind of riff on the Americanized version of this film being so different from the original Soviet version. And I have to say, I went back and watched part of that episode of MST3K on YouTube, and the artistry is there. Like the craft that Ptushko put into this film is still very evident, even though you're seeing it in like pan and scan, dubbed with American voices, and then you've got
With the robots.
you got the robots in front of the screen riffing on it. But like, I think that speaks to the artistic achievement of this film, which is that even though it kind of got bastardized for its American release, the beauty of it is still there. The visual beauty of it and the splendor and the scale is still there.
Were you able to kind of glean much from the dub that was there? Because I can imagine like you could tell any story you want with if you dubbed this movie. I mean, I guess there's like kind of a very basic like, oh, there's a hero, someone got kidnapped, there's a battle, like, but you could really kind of make the details could be anything.
Yeah, so like some of the names were changed, although Ilya remained the same. I did a fair amount of skipping around to see like certain scenes, kind of what they looked like. The dubbing is like American actors doing European accents, which is a strange choice, I guess, especially if they were trying to kind of to Americanize these movies in some way, but obviously in English. So yeah, it's a very strange kind of patch job that was done on this movie, and then even more so for the MST3K format, because those episodes typically run 90-ish minutes, and so they already kind of cut down on the movie as it is to fit in their segments. But yeah, I skipped around, and definitely not the preferred way to watch this movie, especially now that we have this gorgeous Blu-ray edition from Deaf Crocodile, and you can see it with Russian subtitles, the original audio, in the original aspect ratio as was intended. But as an artifact of a time in American cinema where we were getting these imports from the Soviet Union and kind of changing them up, it's quite interesting. I would recommend people check it out maybe after they've seen the full unedited version.
Yeah, and there's definitely plenty to sort of de-Sovietize, because I mean, even as history was my major in college, and I mean I didn't specialize in Soviet history in particular, but even if you just kind of have remember what you hopefully learned in high school about the Soviet Union and the Russian Revolution and all that stuff, there's definitely loads of there's plenty in here about the people of the land of Rus, and sort of valorizing the common folk and stuff that I'm sure it was like would have been seen as stuff that ought to have been taken out of something if you were to present it to an American audience.
Yeah, for sure. And we can get into a little bit of the the characters in this, and the plot as it is it's very archetypal. We talked a little bit about this when we were discussing Legend earlier, but these characters are not, the reason to watch this movie is not the plot or the characters, because they're very much, archetypal. They're what they are based on, the epic poem. And I think the reason to watch this movie is the visuals, is the epic scale, the action sequences, visual effects, and all of that. But I'm curious to know, I mean, you probably know a bit more about the history of this than I do, of like maybe what these kinds of characters would have meant to the people in the Soviet Union at the time, like the fierce young warrior in Ilya, kind of receiving the sword passed down from an elder knight, kind of the whole idea of, what is it that he says at the end? Never putting to shame the hero's sword.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Like I did not do enough research to speak in any kind of authoritative way on this, but like what these kind of character archetypes meant to the people of the Soviet Union at the time, especially whether or not they were familiar with the poems and folk tales that they were based on.
Yeah, and I think much of it is above my pay grade, for sure. I mean, I think you could literally could write dissertations on this stuff, because it's, I mean, even I also thought of, I mean, especially now with what's happening between Ukraine and Russia, there's sort of I think there's a complex and layered history of like what it means to be, this sort of idea of the land of Rus and the people of Rus, like who is a part of that. Like, I mean, the city we're watching being protected by Ilya Muromets is Kyiv. It's not which Russia would claim it as a Russian city now, and is trying to do that as we speak. But I think Ukrainians tell a different story. So I think even there, you just, from the very premise, you sort of have like, this is sort of like a political project to establish what is Russian territory and what is rightfully part of Russia and what's not, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's like still an ongoing thing. So I think that was immediately struck me, just as this is like sort of a nationalistic and political work. And also, I mean, there's just it has to be said, the racist depictions of the
Tugars.
The Tugars, which are also like the Tatars, are basically like Mongol, the outsiders from the east who are coming.
The quote-unquote pagans.
Exactly, yeah. Which is interesting, because also like the first thing we see is this sort of like an almost Norse type god handing the sword to these bards, which I thought
Yeah.
was an amazing scene because it's like this sort of like they've slowed the motion down to have this gigantic looking and forced perspective and composites, I'm sure, of this guy in armor on a horse who's like gives this hero's sword to these bards. And they end up giving it to Ilya Muromets to sort of like kick off his hero's journey. Also struck me as if not paganistic, at least he's like obviously whoever this they named who he was. I'd never heard of the name before of this character. I don't know of its connection to Russian folklore, but a super striking image, and really I think kind of instantly sets this in like an interesting place on the kind of on the border between folktale, legend, fairy tale. But yeah, I have no idea to the extent to which that was like a political, how political that was. But yes, you do get like there are these outsiders coming, and we've got to protect the land from them. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and some of the other political content that stuck out to me, Ilya Muromets is kind of like he is serving this prince of Kiev, and there are a lot of sort of very decadent boyars who are sort of like Russian nobles, I guess, or petty nobles, something like that, who are kind of just sitting around feasting while these invaders are coming. But Ilya Muromets makes a lot of these like kind of sort of grand pronouncements about how like gold and silver are transient things, but the valiant hero's feats are perpetual. So that really felt like as another sort of like Soviet era, like kind of like tagline of sorts. And there's lots of other stuff about like kind of collective strength of the people. Where was it here? Do you remember the part where like one of the farmers he meets early on kind of gives him a pony that turns into like a mighty steed?
Yes.
So that also felt like that's super like, oh, the collective strength of workers, of common folk will kind of combine to like be something mightier than just a single person working on their own, and that's how we're going to defeat these outsiders. Yeah. Also super duper, it's all super Soviet, super collectivistic for sure.
Yeah, and speaking on like the transient nature of the gold and silver, it's interesting that it is money that ends up distracting the Tugars at the end, like as part of Ilya's plan.
Yes.
Where he's basically dropping trails of money like in the fields to distract the Tugar army, so that backups can arrive to Kiev. But it's basically like we see what money is worth to the people of Rus, and we see what money is worth to the Tugar army, and see kind of how they can use that to manipulate them. So
yeah. And lots of shots of the beauty of the land. They talk about how beautiful and bountiful the land is, and that's kind of like the true treasure, the true thing to be protected: the land and the people who work it. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have got to talk about the cinematography in this movie as well, because the nature shots are just bountiful in this movie. There are so many, rolling hills and so many colors. There's a very stark, like, extremely green grass and extremely like red and orange leaves, very saturated colors throughout the whole thing. It's so gorgeous to look at.
When he rides across the poppy field early on.
Oh my gosh.
Like, beautiful stuff.
Yeah, that's really, really great filmmaking, and kind of an example of the widescreen technique that Ptushko was kind of pioneering in this Soviet era of filmmaking. I didn't get a chance to read a ton of the booklet that comes with this film, but there is an excerpt of Ptushko talking about, this being the first widescreen film, and how it actually like enabled him to capture more of like the mise-en-scene of nature, and how it ended up like not being really an issue at all to use the widescreen format. It was just beneficial kind of all the way through, and you can really see it in these nature sequences for sure. Yeah,
I admit I wish I had read more of this, but it's sort of like presented as it's like a facsimile of articles produced or published in a like a movie magazine from the 90s. So it's very small type, and I saw it and I was like, oh, this is I don't know if I feel up to reading this right now, but yeah, I would love to go back and read some more, because it sounds like there's really not. I listened to a very little bit of the commentary because there were a couple of scenes where I kind of was like, I kind of need to hear I want to hear what they have to say about what's being shown to me right now. But it sounds like these essays are from are 30 years old at this point. But even now, it sounds like there's not much scholarship on Ptushko's on how these were made. At least not that's trickled out to here that people in the West would be able to easily access. So yeah.
Yeah, and the 2-point font that is used in the booklet is not ideal, but yeah. I'm sure there's great content in there. There are a couple of times, I think, during the film where Ptushko uses like a backlight effect, and I think this happens during the transformation of the pony to the steed, where he's backlighting the figures, and so they're kind of like this shadowy tableau, but then it's also, you're getting like still the color in the foreground, and just these extremely striking images, and they recur a couple times throughout the film, and I think they're just so gorgeous. And yeah, it's just worth mentioning again that Ptushko has such a great eye for staging things within the frame to make it interesting, and he's always kind of switching it up. And even during like the ginormous crowd sequences where you've got, some visual trickery happening, but also, thousands of extras, and kind of the way he is displaying that in the frame, like keeping, the tiny army people kind of in the bottom of the frame, and then kind of drowning them in like the fog or like the sky that surrounds them. It's so gorgeous.
Yeah, and he uses this sort of in those crowd scenes of the advancing warriors. He uses this like these perspective tricks to he'll have like, he used the same reel of the motion of the soldiers, but he has like one row of them in the foreground, and then further back he's made it smaller, so it's this sort of like a parallax effect, I think is the word. It's like an infinite depth of field of like a huge of what in today they might use like computers to fill the background with digital people, but he did it sort of like practically, which I think was fascinating, and just kind of a neat view into how directors were trying to kind of stretch their money. And like, I need thousands of people. I got a lot of them, but I don't have as many as I'd like to have. So this is what they did.
Yeah. One of the taglines for the film that I found was a cast of 106,000 and 11,000 horses. And I'm like, that's a bold statement. I don't think there were 106,000 people on there, because you can kind of see that parallax effect that you're talking about kind of happening on screen. But it is,
you can see like the fade. There's like I think it's
like the opacity, like
almost double exposure. Yes. But it's a very clever trick, and it works.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that I've found just kind of reading about the film online is that Ptushko is referred to as the Soviet Union's Walt Disney, which is, from what I've seen in the film, like there are parts of this that do feel like a Disney fairy tale. Like there's the romance between Ilya and Vasilisa. At one point, Vasilisa is doing her work. She's like threading a tablecloth, and so she sings to the animals, and the animals bring her things, and that feels very Disney-esque.
Yeah. One of my favorite sequences, I have to say, there's like there's like a fake crane, like a bird crane that's like working a spinning wheel. Did you catch that? Like,
yes.
And she makes apple, and it comes back later in the story. This sort of like magical tapestry or blanket that she's making is able to feed him while he's in prison for like 10 years or however long it was.
Yeah, it's really neat when they show her kind of stitching the tapestry early on and like imbuing it with physical apples, and then it comes back later, like you said, to keep him alive. That's really neat. Someone else that I've seen Ptushko compared to would be Ray Harryhausen, because of the special effects and the creature effects, and we can get into those. But also I've seen him compared to Mario Bava, the Italian filmmaker. And that's interesting to me, because I think Bava made some fantasy films in Italy as well that kind of have this visual kind of sheen to them that they're very very artistic and very like physical tactile worlds that are being created. The creature effects in this movie are definitely worth talking about. The titular dragon in the English title, The Sword and the Dragon, doesn't show up until the final 10 minutes, but I feel like it is a groundbreaking effect, and it still looks good like to this day. I mean, there wasn't much wrong that I see about this.
When it's shooting real fire, like
Yes.
at people and horses that are not far away from it.
And if people listening haven't seen the movie, this is like a 3-headed serpentine dragon, fire-breathing dragon. And there's some miniature work happening, there's some puppetry happening, and then like you said, there's genuine fire coming out of this puppet's mouth.
Yeah, the miniature stuff when it's sort of flying into the fray is maybe the stuff that might come across as the hokiest right now.
Yeah.
To modern viewers, but I don't know. Once it's down there, and it's pretty thrilling to watch. People assaulting this dragon, and the heads are waving around and spitting flame. And again, they do some fun camera tricks where, as they behead each head, you can tell like they cut to the version where the head falls off.
Yeah, you can really see the craft there. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I kind of just gave a little cheer when that happened, because I was just kind of swept up in the sweep of the story, and it's the climactic final minutes. And also, we were talking kind of about some of the performances. I think Boris Andreev, who plays Ilya Muromets, is like kind of, he incredibly barrel-chested.
Yes.
And funny too, when they're saying like, the young, it seems like they really went out of his way to talk about how young he was at the beginning.
Yes. And
because he's like clearly in his 40s.
Yeah, and even when the guy, even when the ancient knight gives the bards the hero's sword, he's like, we need to find a new young hero for Mother Rus or whatever.
Yep.
And it's like, so they're looking for a young hero, and it's like, this is not a young man.
No.
In any sense of the word.
But I mean, because of the scope of the movie, and he's in prison for a while, by the end he's older and old, but he has this booming voice that really works for the type of very rousing speeches he's often giving. But I mentioned it with the dragon because I really loved his son, who is sort of like a secret character of sorts, because he gets abducted by the I keep forgetting their names, but basically the Mongols that are in this movie. Doesn't know that he's Ilya Muromets' son. But I kind of felt like he was one of my favorite characters, because like once he shows up, he's like super fiery, very he kind of almost struck me as like a Robin Hood type figure. Like I could see him like in in an Errol Flynn type role as a swashbuckler. And so when he's there kind of like dealing the killing blow to the dragon at the end, he really sold everything he was doing.
Yeah, that character, the little, what is it, Little Sparrow is his name? Or little...
Yeah, that's kind of his nickname, that they Sokolnichek, I guess is maybe his name. Yeah. But yeah, Little Sparrow is what they call him, is how it's presented. Yeah.
Yeah, and you very much get the folktale, epic poem feel from how his character is introduced, because once Ilya is reunited with Vasilisa, they spend however much time together, and then Ilya needs to go back to war, and Vasilisa gets abducted again by the Tugars and ends up having their son, and 10 years pass and he's basically a full grown.
Yeah, he's like a 25-year-old man, but again they're like, you're only 10 years old, but you have they kind of do the same thing they did with Ilya Muromets, which I thought was,
yes, you have the strength and stature of a man twice your age.
And then they instantly age him. Another 10 years pass and he's so we don't have to sit with him very long as like the 20-year-old 10-year-old.
Yeah.
And then that's basically when we also learn that Ilya Muromets has been in a dungeon for 20 years. without food,
yeah,
except for
something
his
like that.
tapestry. Yeah, but yeah, the
So
dungeon
that's
at the castle. I mean, just that the castle in Kiev, just another just tour de force of production design.
absolutely.
The feast hall that we spend a lot of time in, all the costumes. It just
And
really,
steps at the front of the palace where they
yes.
gather.
Oh, and the stuff they
Fantastic set.
yeah, the stuff they did with miniatures and almost like bigatures, I would say, like with the forced perspective of like you look and it looks like obviously they didn't build this city, but just really fun to watch. And I think again that's kind of this is a very basic story in terms of its arc. I was glad it like 90 minutes was exactly the right runtime, but I mean
Oh, absolutely.
almost every frame you're getting something just really cool to look at.
Yeah, it's really neat what they were able to accomplish with the set design in this. There are a couple of other effects that we haven't talked about yet, but the Nightingale the Robber,
Yes.
kind of wind demon character who has the power to blow the wind out of his mouth. There's a couple of times where he gets to blow, and he's blowing once in the forest when Ilya comes upon him, and the trees literally bend back and then
Yeah.
kind of end up sitting back up once he's done.
Yeah, that felt super Disney. Like thinking about
Yeah.
that felt like something straight out of a Disney cartoon. Or yeah,
Yeah, great effect there. And then when Ilya captures him and brings him to the prince to kind of like as a way to prove himself, kind of as a warrior, he lets Nightingale blow because I think one of the boyars doesn't believe that's the real Nightingale because it's the traitorous boyar
Right.
who is secretly working for the Tugars, and he's boasting about how he killed Nightingale the robber. And so when Ilya presents the real Nightingale, this guy is like, no, I killed him, this is an imposter. And so Ilya lets him let loose, and incredible shots of people getting blown back and tumbling and being thrown into the air
Yeah.
and things falling over.
And was that did they did they run the film backwards to do that
Yeah.
effect? Yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that happening in some of the shots, especially where people are falling up the stairs. It's really great
Yeah.
stuff.
I love it. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of cool effect stuff to geek over in this film, and in addition to the nature, cinematography, and the action sequences and things like that. But yeah, as you say, we've mentioned already, the plot isn't very deep, and it's extremely nationalistic in its way, and these are archetypal characters, and it does feel kind of episodic, similarly to what we've seen, with the Odyssey coming out this year. That is a very episodic story by nature. And so having been primed for the structure of an epic poem or the adaptation of an epic poem, it didn't really bother me at all the way this is laid out.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it moves so briskly as well. It is, it goes by so fast.
And again, I think that's stuff that we kind of talked about kind of up at the top about just this is what Soviet people in the Soviet Union were watching on TV. And I found myself kind of really thinking a lot about what it said about the the Soviet political project at the time and even now, and all the layers of meaning that are there that I only can barely perceive with my very limited knowledge. So I would be interested to listen. I don't think that the guy who did the commentary is like I don't know that he's a Soviet film expert exactly, but I would be fascinated to hear someone who really knew the depth of this stuff to really sit and unpack everything that's going on and everything that's being said, because I think the weight of history is kind of doing a lot of the work of this movie's narrative for sure, beyond just the simple stuff that we see.
Yeah. Did you have any extraneous bits that we hadn't mentioned that you wanted to put out there?
Yeah, just more visual stuff. Like I think the facial prosthetics that are on Nightingale, that make his cheeks sort of puff up bigger. At least that it seemed to me like there was something going on with his cheeks. Just everything about him was pretty fun.
Yeah, almost like a practical inflatable thing happening. With his
Something like
cheeks.
that.
Yeah.
Unless he just had extraordinary cheeks. Maybe he did. I don't know.
Extraordinary cheeks.
There is there is some other fun stuff like toward the end when the head Tugar Tsar, Colin, there you go. He has his people make a mound so he can like get up high. That was another time when they used some really cool trickery to make the mound appear bigger than it was.
Yeah.
And where they clearly had dozens and dozens of people forming a mound of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's mostly it. But just, yeah, again, the matte paintings, beautiful. I don't even know if they're matte paintings necessarily, but these painted backdrops, almost more like that. Which, of course, you can tell they're painted, but they're just so beautiful to look at, and I could have looked at those all day. Yeah, I think that's about it for me. Did you have anything else?
There's a shot where it's before Ilya gets put in the dungeon, and the prince thinks that Ilya has basically deserted the army at this point because he went to spend time with Vasilisa, and so he's coming back to talk to the prince, and he gets kind of turned away, and so he shoots an arrow through a bunch of icicles, which
Yes.
is just, it's a shot that I've seen before in other movies, but not like this, where it's just, the cut is so clean and it's visually just really appealing. And I thought that was cool. I thought it was comical as Colin, the leader of the Tugar, is having his army folks collect the money that was left behind purposefully by Ilya and his soldiers. Initially, they are all keeping the money to themselves and saying they didn't find anything. And then Ilya kind of turns someone upside down and shakes them out and, and
Yes.
does that whole thing to be like, yeah, they're keeping the money from you. And then he has them kind of throw the money into a pile. And I thought this was comical, like shot by shot, the pile gets bigger and bigger
Yeah.
and bigger. Another one of those optical tricks where the people are kind of walking in circles and just throwing money into the pile.
Yes.
I thought that was pretty comical. There was a neat detail when Ilya meets his son for the first time and they don't know that they're related yet. When they're actually sparring, there are actual sparks coming from their swords clashing. I thought that was such a neat detail.
That, yeah.
And then the last one that I wanted to mention is that during the final battle, I think when Ilya is taking on a bunch of people at once, or I think he and a couple of his fellow knights that we've met previously are taking on a bunch of people at once. They're just swinging their swords and hands are flying into the air that have been dismembered. I thought that was incredible. Just totally unnecessary, but really it was funny to me to see that. So I just wanted to point that out. But yeah, I think this one's going to be a keeper for me. I don't know how often I will come back to this to revisit, but it does feel like an essential kind of cornerstone of the Deaf Crocodile project in general. And since I've really kind of grown my collection with them over the past year or so, it does feel like something I want to hang on to.
Yeah, I'm excited to check out more in this set, and I think some of them are definitely more like, it sounds like some of them are more like fairy tales, and so there's more kind of fantasy elements, and I just love, I love me some fantasy movies, and it's just fascinating to see both how this type of stuff was done, A, in just in other countries, B, with other sort of myth making, national project myth making mindsets, and also just with limited technology, like how the very imaginative ways that they used, the very imaginative ways they approached the constraints that they had to make things that didn't exist. And this is just a great example of all that. And it's also available on Tubi and Canopy, and I haven't checked out the transfers that are available there, but I know that like another great Deaf Crocodile release, Heroic Times, which is basically just a series of paintings, like oil paintings, that are presented and almost make like an animated movie. Bat and Spider actually covered it. Really amazing film. That's up on Tubi, and it's Deaf Crocodile's transfer. So
nice.
this,
Okay.
yeah, so this might also be. I would recommend anybody who is at all interested in this. It's a fun watch. It's breezy. You could put it on the background, and Tubi's transfer could very well be the Deaf Crocodile transfer, which looks fantastic. So I would say check it out there. You don't have to shell out for the Blu-ray if you don't want to. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that wraps up our discussion on Aleksandr Ptushko's Ilya Muromets. If you have any thoughts, listeners out there, on this film, Soviet film, Deaf Crocodile, upcoming releases, physical media questions, or you want to share stories about Dolly Parton or Tim Curry's impacts on your life, your film watching history, anything like that, feel free to send them our way to blindbuyspod@gmail.com. I'll be glad to read those messages on the air and respond to them. We don't have any letters from friends this week, so with that being said, I think we can move on to Jesse's pick for our next episode. What are you thinking for this one?
I also wanted to hit another label that we haven't hit yet, and another one that was big in me getting in, kind of moving on the bounds of some of the typical names, and another one that spun out of the Vinegar Syndrome partner label ecosystem and has been just really, really solid and consistent with what they've curated and put out and the look. And so that will be from Fun City Editions, Michael Ritchie's Smile.
Oh, yes. I have this.
Yes, from 1975.
Oh, this is awesome.
And so, yes, Smile. It's time again for California's Young American Miss Beauty pageant, the biggest event of the year for Big Bob Freelander and Brenda DiCarlo, who give it their all to put on a successful pageant. But Brenda is having marital difficulties and Bob's son is up to some mischief. Could this year's pageant be in jeopardy? And this stars Bruce Dern, Barbara Feldon, Michael Kidd, Jeffrey Lewis, among others, and a very, very early appearance from Melanie Griffith. Colleen Camp's in there. So yeah, this is sort of like a slice of life from, if not middle America, then kind of like rural America, I think. Small town America. And I've heard this kind of discussed in relation to movies like Drop Dead Gorgeous and some other films. So I'm very excited to check this out. Michael Ritchie, also director of Fletch, among other films, and Prime Cut, an amazing movie. So very, very accomplished guy who and The Candidate, another movie I haven't seen, The Bad News Bears. So yeah, Michael Ritchie knew what he was doing. So yeah, Smile.
All right, this is awesome. And I'm definitely going to have to clarify on the show art for this next one that this is not Smile 2022.
Yes, it is not.
No. All right, well, folks, you heard it here first. Next week's pick is Smile from Fun City Editions. Hope to see you all next time.
Bye, everybody.